And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion, conversation about Star Trek. And today we're talking about Star Trek Discovery's The War Within, The War Without. And I'm so pleased to be joined by Nick and Rob. Nick from The Real Ketwalski or Ketwalski channel on YouTube, and Rob from the Trek Book Club, and also Trekkie Rob on Twitter. So hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's been a minute and a half. So we're kind of all on slight time crunches, so I'm just gonna say let's just go through it. Do either one of you guys want to give the episode summary?
I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah,
I've only watched the episode once, so you guys jump in if I miss a part. So
Okay.
feel free. But
sounds good.
So the episode takes place obviously directly after the Discovery returns. They have jumped 9 months into the continuation of the Klingon War. It's also kind of discovered that the appearance of Emperor Georgiou is being kept kind of a secret, even aboard the Discovery. That kind of happens like immediately in the beginning of the episode. It also is revealed that Ash Tyler's surgery has gone successfully, and they have supposedly removed the Vok personality. But at the beginning of the episode, there's a lot of tension between Burnham and Ash Tyler. They refuse to actually link up until much later in the episode. Then we get confronted with Sarek and Admiral. Oh God, what is her name?
Cornwall.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's right. Admiral Cornwall. They beam aboard the Discovery, and they verify that they are in fact who they are, and they kind of make some plans to try and save the Federation, because at this point the Federation has lost, I believe they said 20% of their 20% of their former territory, which when you look at the map that they keep using, I know I'm going off tangent right now. The map makes it look like it's way more than 20%. But anyway, so they come up with some plans. So essentially this was a very character heavy episode. This was setting up the finale. They come up with some plans. They spend a lot of time discussing different ideas. There's a beautiful character moment between Sarek and Emperor Georgiou discussing Michael Burnham. There's some really great interactions between Michael Burnham and Emperor Georgiou as they continue to try to formulate plans, because essentially the Klingons are, what they reveal in the episode is that all 24 houses are battling with each other by utilizing the Federation as fodder and basically bragging rights. One of the things that they've really touched on in the episode that they talk about, which was they're using suicide attack runs with cloaked vessels and all this other stuff like that. So essentially the Federation is at a loss. All their tactics are not working, and they are in desperate need of assistance. And where they get that assistance is in a dire need of desperation. They turn to the Emperor Georgiou that they have there, and she provides some insight as to how it is she tamed the Klingons in the mirror universe, but leaves out some very key details, which we're still not 100% clear on what those details are, but I have some speculations as to what that is. And Starfleet eventually does approve of the plan, but essentially the Discovery is going to be jumping inside of the planet of Kronos to map out key military structures for an orbital bombardment in an attempt to put the Klingons on the defensive. And they kind of basically get set up for that. And at the end of the episode, we get two big moments. We have the pseudo reconciliation of Ash Tyler and Burnham, where essentially they're saying kind of goodbye, but at the same time, I think we all kind of know that they're going to rekindle that love later. But that's whatever. And then we also get the reveal of now back from the dead Captain Georgiou, who takes her position as captain of the USS Discovery just prior to them jumping to Kronos. So
great. Well done. That was a much more succinct than I would have done.
Well, because there's not a lot that happened. It was just a lot of talking.
A lot of talking. I am going to disagree with you on something you said in the summary, though. I don't think they're going to get back together. I think my prediction is that it's totally going to be over, and Maybe that's just because I feel like Burnham, and I'm like, you tried to fucking kill me. You're like,
right.
But who knows?
So,
I don't know. Maybe she can come back from that.
I hope that they don't. Let me just preface, or maybe rephrase what I said. I hope that they don't get back together, but I do feel like the show being heavy on the drama for personal relationships, they're not going to be able to resist. They're going to have, it's going to happen. They will not be able to resist it. So that's just me putting forth my projection onto the writers that I just feel like that's where we're going to head to. So,
or maybe they could have Tyler sacrificing himself, as an act of redemption type of thing. There's something that happens in the final episode, or even in season 2. Perhaps he could.
Yeah, that would be great. See, that would be good. That would be good.
Yeah, then she can kind of. I guess there's some kind of reconciliation there, but also the relationship wouldn't carry on because he wouldn't be around.
Right. But I return back to them. So if they kill him off, then they have to wait at least 2 more seasons before they can give her another love interest.
Why? Why?
I think
but it sounds like Burnham has a lot of dating to do to catch up to everyone else. So
she does. She needs her wild college years. She needs to go back.
She really does.
Go back and redo that.
I'm all for a seasonal love interest. In that we don't even get that with any of. I mean, that would be at least a little bit more drawn out than Riker, who has like about 7 love interests a season. So
that's true. Yeah, we need something a bit more graphic. Yeah, Riker. So I want to talk about some things that I really liked in this episode before I really get into the things that I really didn't like. And for the record, I did not like this episode.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah,
I will say that I love this episode, so this will be an interesting.
I recognize that I'm against the grain here. A lot of people are not the best episode ever, but I respectfully disagree. But we'll get into that. But
awesome.
I absolutely loved, and I am continuing to love because she started in a couple episodes ago, but this episode really piqued it for me. The character of Tilly.
Yeah.
Her actions in this episode were fantastic. And I got engaged in a little bit of a Twitter conversation where somebody was like, well, she just doesn't understand relationships, and it was wrong for her to pressure Burnham into trying to reconcile or deal with Ash Tyler. And I disagreed with that completely. I think that her desire was for closure and healing and moving forward, which is really what the crew needs right now. Because you got to think, there's open wounds of Culber dying. There's open wounds of missing 9 months of the war, and a lot of their friends and family are dead. There's open wounds of Captain Lorca being, betraying all of them. And there's the open wound of Ash Tyler being a Klingon. And her actions during the little time when they were in the mess hall was just quintessential Trek. Like, she's embodying the Federation's values, literally. And I thought that was just great. Beautifully done, well executed. It wasn't too hammy. It wasn't too cheesy. It was really well done, that she is really showing off. And it's ironic that she's a cadet and she's not even a member of Starfleet officially yet. But I just thought that was great. I really love that. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I really loved that part of the episode.
It was a great scene. It was really good.
And if I may offer a personal note, deeply personal note, like that scene affected me more than any scene so far on Star Trek Discovery. And I really I started to ball up, and not floodgates, but I was like, and the scene I'm talking about is in the mess hall where Tilly, sits and talks to Tyler, and just everything about that moment, include when he's like, I'm okay, and she's like, how could that possibly be? It's just, I mean, everything that she says in that scene, it's so on point, really good.
It's specifically what you just said, that when she says how can that possibly be true, when he says I'm fine, she just allows it, him to just, she just sits there with him, on offers some sort of, just someone to be there for support. She doesn't judge him. She just is there for him,
and Nick,
is
you
really
totally
good.
like illustrated like I think Sarek says it in the episode too. It's like what the crew has been through, it's really unfathomable. It's like a really deep like thing. Like there's just so much I have to say, like, you don't realize it because you're like, you're watching it as a show, but when you think of it like from if you go in world for a moment and you think what would it be like to go through that, you can't deny that it's an insane thing to have to go through, like what they've gone through, basically all the death, but not just that, like the mind-bending idea of a whole new universe. And like, and that was another point that I thought the show nailed really well. I would like you to continue with your points, but maybe you'll touch on what their solution is to do with the knowledge of the mirror universe.
So the reason why this episode doesn't work for me is there was I don't like the fact that they're saying, like, they're implying that the Federation is basically on the brink of extinction, and that everything's lost and they're desperate and they don't know what to do. But then in the same breath, they say, well, we've only lost 20% of our space. Okay. I understand that. And then they say, well, the Klingons are actually in the back door of Earth. Okay. Which doesn't make any sense. And then they're saying that they've lost, I think they said 2/3 of their fleet or 1/3 of their fleet, something like that. Which again, like, it's just inconsistent for me. Like the level of peril is inconsistent. They're saying, well, we've lost all these people, we've lost all these ships, but we've only lost 20%. And actually, it doesn't seem so bad. Because at this point, like, the way that everything is going, where's the USS Enterprise? The Enterprise isn't going to be off doing a 5-year mission under Robert April or Pike or whoever the hell is in charge of it right now. They're going to be recalled to defend Earth. The Constitution class vessel is one of the strongest ones that they've got right now. It's tip of the spear. Where is it? You know what I mean? Like, and it would almost imply that during that 9-month period, they would have already recalled them, and the Enterprise would already be destroyed, along with everybody else's ships. So to me, there's just it's just a little jarring for the inconsistencies between what everything's going on. So it's a little frustrating for me. The other things, like, it was just too canon tough. I think it just really jacked with canon too much. Like, and it's little things, like Discovery had their shields raised, and the Vulcan ship that was approaching them had their shields raised, and they still managed to beam aboard the ship. And I mean, you could say that they had the shield frequencies, and that's why they were able to do it, but they didn't really touch on that. And I just think that the writers just didn't care and they forgot, to be honest. And then you got this whole thing where they are locking the Terran Empire's existence up, like all the knowledge. Yeah, okay, you could do that. You could take all the files, but then you have like 100, 200 people, or however the hell many people are on Discovery. I don't even think we really know, but they're not going to be able to keep the Gaggler up forever. Eventually things are going to get leaked, and this level of conflict doesn't jive well with how much the Federation has dealt with the Klingons. I know I'm going on a tirade here, but
I'm actually writing notes because I have some points that.
Well, so to me, it just felt very rough. And then overall, like, I was just not jiving with that stuff. And then the nail in the coffin for me with this episode was at the end when they awkwardly introduced Emperor Georgiou as Captain Philippa Georgiou. And it's like, I didn't quite understand. It's like there are several people, at least a dozen people, that have seen Georgiou walking around with the, like the guys inside the transporter room. There was at least 2 other guys in the transporter room that saw her beam in, So this whole thing was like, are you just trying to trick them? Or are you saying, like, this is Captain Philippa Georgiou? Wink, you know what I mean? Like, and let the record reflect that this is who this person is, but everybody knows. So it was just really weird. I was just like, why even bother to try to hide it? Like, I don't know. It was just really weird. Like, why did she even need to be there? Why does she even need to be on the bridge? Like, I understand she wanted to get her freedom, and I get that. But okay, yeah, sure. Here's a shuttlecraft, and here's some supplies and some latinum, and there's the fucking door. Like, you don't need to give her a uniform and put her in charge of the Discovery. Like, that was just really, Like, what could she possibly provide to them? They have the spores. They already have everything ready to go for the mycelial network. They know where fucking Kronos is, and Stamets has the ability to map out exactly where to jump. So why does she need to be there? So that was just a lot for me. But anyways, I'm done now. That was all the things I hated. All right.
I was going to say, didn't she have a discussion with was it Sarek about how what she told Burnham was only going to temporarily give them the upper edge?
Well, there's there's definitely an implication that she thinks Burnham's not scrupulous enough or whatever to do what must be done. I mean, there's some kind of bizarre thing, and in the trailer for the next episode, you get a hint of that as well, because Burnham's arguing with Admiral Cornwall about Federation ideals and and stuff like that. So, I think that the all your points are actually excellent, Nick, because I'm like, oh yeah, there's like all these like incongruities there, which we still can't for sure. I can't really seriously know until the finale what they're gonna do. But one speculation that I have about Captain Giorgio is that maybe she kind of put them in a corner, so to speak. And maybe this wasn't illustrated as well as it could have been, but I got the impression that she was like, Sarek's like, don't, in that little dialogue scene between she and Sarek, where they're like, having a pissing contest about which Burnham is better in the beginning, which I thought was really funny. Sarek's like, the intel you already provided is good enough. Like, we're good to go. Thanks, right? And then and that's when she kind of drops this other kind of hint, and I think that's why she's the Empress. I mean, she's pretty nefarious, right? So she's playing Sarek in a way, and she has some design or thing that I think she wants to do. But I think she probably said when she said freedom, like, I want my freedom, I think she probably was like, I want to command this mission. That's how you can prove to me that the Federation is I wish she said it on camera. It would have been a lot better, because then we know her motive a little bit more. But it seems like a logical thing is that Sarek had to go. That's why he was like so like kind of serious about it, and he's like, I have to get back to Vulcan to talk to to confer about it, because she probably said something that like he was like, oh shit, like this is like a deal with the devil type of thing. That's the only thing I can think of, but who knows? Like, we don't know because it wasn't on screen, like.
Yeah, so here's the thing, and the writers of Discovery, they're not very clever. I think as a group we've pretty much nailed almost all of their little hidden bits of information, and so they shared with us 3 things in this episode that imply exactly what's going to happen. Number one, when they had the image of Kronos, they said that Kronos is essentially a planet full of caverns and a bunch of active and inactive volcanoes.
Yeah.
Then she says Kronos, when they cut later, she says Kronos is a blackened crater in my universe.
Right.
And then she says Burnham is not capable in any universe capable of stomaching exactly what's going to happen. So what's happening is the targets that they're scanning for are not military targets, or they may be, but the intention is that they're going to activate all of the volcanoes and essentially destroy Kronos and every living being on it. That's going to be the moral conundrum. I think that Sarek went back to not only get approval for that, but to also, I think, rally resources for essentially the potential of a massive humanitarian thing, because now you're going to have a bazillion number of Klingon refugees. I do think that's where he went to go do that.
I have a strong feeling that you're right about this one. Those are really compelling points. But I have to say, like, and I definitely think that, like, I think that like something happens between the writing and the actual production, because the show does feel like it's missing so many things. You know what I mean? So like, as far as the writers being clever, I think they definitely would be clever to hire you. Like,
Well, it's they're not
because
super
you're seeing
subtle
things
with
that I
their
definitely didn't.
with-
Well,
right.
I mean, I don't know. I get all involved. I get too emo, I think, but I didn't catch that at all. So that was great thing to point out. But
Did either of you see them making Emperor Georgiou the captain? Did you see that coming?
No.
I didn't see that coming, but I like the irony of it because in a way it's like be careful of what you wish for, because we were all like, when we met at the Captain Prime timeline, Captain Georgiou, we were all like, oh, why did she die so soon? That would have been such a cool show to have her on. And then of course, here we get we get our wish, and so to speak, where it's like, oh well, you want to Captain Georgiou, well here's the the one you're getting. So I thought it's ironic.
I think that I hated the fact that they brought her in as Captain Georgiou. I really did. Also, her haircut looks the same as it did in the pilot episode, and there's no way that Emperor Georgiou's hair would look like that. What do they replicate, a wig or something? I don't know.
Well, no, you saw in Star Trek: The Next Generation they have like a wand that can grow your hair, or like
Right.
or
That's
like,
right.
or like change the color.
Unless you're Jean-Luc Picard, in which case the only bald guy in Star Trek. Yeah.
But there is a problem though, because I think like you bring up a point that like, would the Federation actually get involved with a deal like are they so desperate, with the 20% Federation space, with the 1/3 fleet loss, and like, and like I agree with you, like 20% doesn't seem like a lot, but what if that territory happens to be very strategic territory? So what if like that 20% of the territory that's been taken constitutes, say, like 60% of the Federation's defenses or defensive capabilities? So there's possibly something. But even given all that, like, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, like, yeah, the Federation's pretty screwed here. Does it justify like the course of action that they seem to be doing? And like, I forgot about the tech in the transporter room. It's one thing to say, this is classified, don't speak about it to anyone, but like now it's like this kid in the transporter room is going to have a dilemma. Like, he's gonna be like, oh crap, like that's the mirror universe emperor lady. Like, it's
Right,
not
and
Georgia.
it's not
like he knows that they're lying. It's like,
right. It's not like they could play anything off there. So it's very so obviously the next episode is going to involve the destruction of Kronos with the murder of billions of innocent Klingons, men, women, and children. I like the fact that we are now at the point where 9 months later, or I guess a year and 9 months later, after Burnham's mutiny, which her whole objective there was, we've got to do anything and everything in order to stave off a war and protect the Federation. And Philippa Georgiou was like, no, that's not Federation values. We don't fire first. We've got to do diplomatic course action. And we've come full circle now where she's on the defense of Federation values, and Admiral Cornwall is like, nah, fuck them. Let's blow them right to hell,
Which, it's like, and I really like Admiral Cornwall. I don't want her to be that character. You know what I mean? Like, I actually like her character a lot.
I like her too. I like her. I like her a lot, and I think she's a great character to have on the show. But yeah, again, that's why it's like they're literally having a dilemma in the writers' room. I'm speculating here, but they want it to be like dire circumstances that the Federation's on its last leg. Everyone's gonna die if we don't do this mission. But at the same time, though, someone's in the back saying, well, actually during this time, there's no recorded history of this event. Earth's never been invaded before, and we can't actually do that. And actually, the Constitution class ships are still doing their 5-year missions, so it can't be that bad because they wouldn't have recalled them. So it's not that bad. And every other time that this kind of stuff has ever happened in Star Trek, and I don't think everything needs to repeat themselves, but the fact that they're ignoring it again, I think, is just lazy on their part. But every other time that either the Klingons or other races get involved with a massive war, there's always 2 or 3 other factions pulling strings and doing shit in the backgrounds, aka the doggone Romulans. Where are the Romulans? The Romulans are on the border edge of Klingon and Federation space. And you best goddamn believe that they are well aware of what's going on, and the fact that the Federation's on its last leg. And you're going to tell me the Romulans are not invested in any of that information? I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. This is great that we're talking about it, because one thing I didn't think about was, okay, so new Star Trek show, Star Trek Discovery, for what it is, I'm more soft to it now than I was in the beginning. In the beginning, I didn't know if I was gonna make it to to the end of the season. but what I will say is that the show does this a lot, where like you'll hear about a ship approaching with shields up ready to fire, but you never actually see the other ship. It's a very isolated show, and I think that's a mistake on the part of the producers and the writers, because here we have an opportunity, as you said, like how neat would it have been if Discovery just had a few more scenes where they showed Constitution ships at the front lines. Like that would be neat to see, like an actual battle. And even if it's not the Enterprise, at least you're like, hey, and if you don't want to spend the money to do a whole sequence, have a view screen moment, where you see the battle from remote sensors, but you're not you're not, so you don't have to spend the crazy money, but at least it's a nice little touch that just expands the world a little more, and expands our knowledge of it and our understanding of it. And so I do agree with that 100%. I think this is definitely a fault on the part of the production team. And again, I'm not on that production team, so I can only say this with the most compassion possible for you writers, but but yes, that's definitely something that is evident, as far as a flaw. What do you think, Rob?
I don't know. I have a bit more faith in them. I think they know what they're doing, but then maybe that's because I don't know as much as you guys about the canon and history. But at the beginning, there was people went crazy over Lorca. That's not Starfleet. That's not Star Trek, and they were right. He wasn't, and the writers worked that out. They knew that where they were going with that. So I don't know. Maybe all these inconsistencies, or some of them at least. I mean, I'm sure some of them are mistakes, but I think they know where they're going. I think they're cleverer than we're giving them credit for.
I mean, there's not really, when you look at the show, there's not really a lot of canon inconsistencies per se, outside of the visual canon, in terms of what your expectations are of what things will look like. Because you can't deny that it is bizarre that the choices that the production team made of how to even show Klingon ships is outside of our expectations, and even what's established, expectations that are from an established source. Enterprise establishes a look,
right?
TOS has a look, and I'm not saying you have to make it look like TOS. I agree with the updating of visual effects and things like that, but make it look familiar. Don't make it so alien. I think that they got the Starfleet ships okay. I can reconcile with that. I don't mind that it's a blade nacelle versus a tubular nacelle, or or things like that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with those kinds of things, but nothing on the Klingon side looks like Klingon stuff. It looks like, I don't know.
I wonder why. I wonder what it is that makes some people not worry about, or not care about that so much.
Well, it's the story. I think people watch for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think that some audience members don't really, yeah, and it also depends on how much Star Trek you've seen. If this is your first Star Trek, you're probably blown away and thinking, who are these crazy people that are talking about all this minutia that doesn't really matter, you know what I mean? But if this is not your first Star Trek rodeo, there are questions that come up, and I think it's healthy to have those questions and talk about them, and wonder how is this gonna resolve, because it's I think it's a valid thing. I think it depends on who you're having the conversation with, really, is what it boils down to. Ultimately, despite these kinds of incongruities, my opinion is that overall, Discovery is doing a great thing by bringing Star Trek back on TV. I think that, like, as far as my expectations of Star Trek go, maybe they are a little higher than what the writers think is fair, or the producers think is fair. But they're still my expectations, and I do think that they're important to express. But as far as, like, expressing values that are positive, showcasing dilemmas that are current, and exposing us to science and science fiction ideas, Star Trek Discovery is doing it. It's doing it, like, in a different way than I'm used to, but it is doing it, and you can see that is evident here. Like, I mean, just to take the science example, like, how cool was that scene with the spore? Even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, like, it's still a really neat way to convey, what it looks like to terraform a planet, or to, like, at this time, what I mean?
Oh,
like, so
you mean Genesis device version 1?
yeah, right, like,
right.
Sure,
Yeah.
Exactly, like, it's
not clever. It was not clever. And
but I think from the perspective of like showing, something, so this is the thing that, like, Sean and I talk about a lot. It's like Discovery so far has been such a dry well from what, like, I expected from Star Trek, that when they do something, like, really cool, it's like I'm like, like, thank you,
right,
like, I'm
right,
so grateful. It's like, so, but I do my faith is that, like, there will be a reconciliation between the fans and the fandom and the naysayers and the go get 'ems, and in season 2 we're going to see a much more, my hope is that in season 2 we're going to see a much more defined show, a show that, like, took a little bit more time to think things out, and and a production team that is interested in, like, getting it right, so to speak.
We'll see.
We shall
we'll see.
That was quite
I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think they're going to bother with it. I really think that it's either going to go one of two ways, in my opinion. It's either going to be they're not going to address it at all, and for us Trekkies, it's just, go F yourself. Like, this is what it is now. I don't care, which seems to be most likely. Or that they're going to do a play on words with us, and they're going to say, well, we've said that this was prime timeline, and we said that this was 10 years before Kirk and Spock. But what we didn't tell you was that the Star Trek universe that you've all known for 50 years, that wasn't the prime universe. This is the prime universe. And at the end of the show, we're going to jump into another mirror universe. That'll be the one that we all recognize and know. And they will dismantle the USS Discovery, erase all record of ever using a spore drive, and they will just simply assimilate themselves into a society, and that'll be the end of it. So
that sounds so. You heard it here first on Starfleet Boy.
That makes me think of the end of Battlestar Galactica.
Exactly. That's actually 100% where I think that I think that if they want to be groundbreaking, that's where they're going to go. They're going to subvert your expectations and say, well, just like Battlestar Galactica did, where they said, yeah, we found Earth, and it was a radioactive husk, and now we found Earth. And I think that's exactly this is the prime timeline.
This is not your
I never said the other one was the prime. This is the prime. And that's why it looks different, and yeah, so it's we'll see, though. We'll see. So there was two things. There was two big things I really wanted to talk about really quick with you guys. I know you guys are crunched for time, so I want to jump onto them. But did anybody else catch all the references to the Borg in this episode?
I heard in the Laurel scene with Cornwall, she says something along the lines of, and I you'll maybe the quote better, but is that the scene you're talking about where she's like,
so there was in the Laurel scene, in the Sarek and Giorgio scene, and then also in the Ash, Tyler, and Burnham scene, where she says we have to adapt and overcome, and we have to adapt to our surroundings. And there was literally the phrase "adapt to overcome," "adapt," and "assimilation" were used multiple times throughout the entire episode. And I know we talked about 2-3 episodes ago. I think it was me and Sean that were getting into that conversation about how the Federation shares such large similarities to that of the Borg. So I just thought it was really kind of interesting. All I kept thinking about when I was hearing these dialogue words being thrown out, I'm like, these guys are just sitting here watching this podcast thing, and they're just writing down notes. Do you guys think that was deliberate at all? Do you guys think that that's something that they were subconsciously trying to implant that idea in our heads during the episode, or what do you guys think?
It definitely stood out and was noticeable, but I actually had this thought, and I think it was something that there's some kind of theory that started maybe on Reddit or something, and I think Sean talked about this, and we talked about this offline. I'm not sure, but it is weird that Lieutenant Detmer has like the implant. Like we've never actually seen humans, or not even just humans, but Federation citizens embrace that kind of augmentation before, and we've definitely never seen like the Daft Punk robot in the pilot, which I wish she was still around or he was still around. Like that, I really like miss that robot. But it's also unusual because we never saw robots in Star Trek before, and we've never seen like augmented humans like Ariam is. So that's like the thing that kind of again, an additional thing that irks you where you're like, this isn't right. And so I wonder if there's like a purpose to that. And like I wonder, the theory that I'm referencing is that what if this iteration of the Prime timeline is the origins of the Borg somehow, but who knows?
Yes. Michael Burnham is the original Borg queen.
That's pretty meaty. Oh my gosh, that's pretty meaty stuff. Wow, talk about drama. I did see that, and one scene that I really liked, up until now, like I've been seeing that the show I've been at least sensing that the show is trying to be sympathetic towards the Klingons in some way, even if it's just to say that like, because I think like all along they've been saying like you're gonna see Klingons like you've never seen them before, and so there's this whole sad story about like these people that are devoted to T'Kuvma and like their whole tale. But I think in this episode that was like something that I really needed as a viewer was what Cornwall says, and she's just like, your Messiah was like a baffling idiot. Like,
yeah, so that was the other thing I wanted to get your guys' input on, was because we talked about that before on several past episodes, where I personally was like adamantly saying, listen, they need to pan out this Klingon storyline. What the hell are they doing? What's going on with the Klingons? What's L'Rell and Vox's plan? And it turns out that they didn't have a plan. That they were, and it actually really worked, because it wasn't poor writing. It was actually the characters themselves were just desperate. They were in love. They were lonely. They felt like their Messiah had gone, and they were just kids. When you think about it that way, they were just young, ideological Klingon kids that were just trying
totally misled.
Yeah, they were just misled, and they were just trying to keep to the word of T'Kuvma and try to bring people back to his house. And when she said that, she was like, well, we're going to get this as a discovery, and we were going to use that to rally more people to T'Kuvma's house. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. But it's not poor writing. The way it was presented, it was, these are just misguided youths that just don't understand really what's going on. And I actually thought that scene and that revelation really worked great. My expectations were completely subverted there, because I thought there was going to be this master plan, but it was just a bunch of idiot Klingon kids, Klingon teenagers that don't know what the hell they're doing. And it worked. Yeah. I thought it worked really well.
It works because it's so... Well, I agree. It works because it feels so real. It feels like something that like we're seeing a lot with any kind of fundamental list ideals out there in the world today. The people who are actually doing the damage and like the the suicide bombers, that kind of thing, are innocent and very naive, and also very like, you know, hopeful youths, you know, like,
Right.
or desperate youths, I should say, that have nothing going for them anymore. And so like, yeah, I think you're right that it works completely on that level. But it's not like what you expected.
It's not. It's not. What do you think, Rob?
So, do you think that there's no Vogue is completely gone? There's no. You don't think there's any trace of him left? It's just that I think one of the medics, or one of the, I don't know if she's the chief medical officer, but she was saying that I think Saru was asking her, like, is he Klingon? Is he human? And she says he's kind of both or neither. And L'Rell seems, she's really smart. Like, could she not have, you know, some kind of master plan up her sleeve, and this is all part of it, and perhaps she's lulling them into a false sense of security? Or am I way off?
I mean,
I would say that it's very possible. I think that they are going to play on the Ash Tyler Vox stuff a little bit more. I don't think it's
why would L'Rell, you know, she uses those weird things to bring Tyler back. Why would she do that? What's in it for her? She doesn't seem like someone that gives things away freely unless she's getting something back.
I think the situation there was directly related to the fact that she was in love with Vok, and he was in pain, and he was essentially already gone. That's the way I wrote that up. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah,
I think that ultimately, like, you know, it is baffling. I can't see the end game with Vok Tyler, but I think that I have to say that, like, you know, she did suppress him because she was in love with him. Like, I definitely think I think he's like, I think she probably just, like, you know, and it's probably something that, like, she doesn't expect to ever undo. Like, she's like, this, as far as she's concerned, he is dead, and maybe that's why she did that, you know, death knell at the end or whatever. The more that we're talking about it, the more I think that, like, in next week's episode, you know, Emperor Georgiou is going to have this plan to incinerate the surface of Kronos, but I do think that it's going to be thwarted, because, you know, again, like, in it, you know, if this is the prime timeline, then Kronos isn't gone until much later, so it can't happen or whatever. That's one thing. But, you know, because that would create, like, a huge dilemma. But I think that, like, also, the more that we're talking, that it does seem likely that I think, Rob, you said it, that Tyler is gonna, or was it you, Nick, that Tyler's gonna he's gonna sacrifice himself in some kind of heroic gesture, and that'll be maybe that's the heroic gesture, is maybe he'll stop the cascading failure, or the cascading effect that causes the volcanoes to explode. And so maybe it'll be just enough damage, like Kronos won't be incinerated, but, like, maybe the process gets started and it's enough to send a message for the Klingons to come home, and now they're like, well, maybe the Federation's willing to go further than we thought they were, you know, in terms of that. So everybody wins.
I do think that I hope, I don't think, because I do think that the show's going to be always, of course, more drama, but I hope that we do a victory of ideologies, and that we don't have a sequence where we see a slow motion Ash Tyler running down a corridor, or explosions and volcano shit happening. You know, I hope that it's a battle of ideologies, because I honestly do believe, based off of the fact that they are operating on such a level of terroristic activities, insurgent level activities, that destroying Kronos will only embolden the other houses and cause them to be even more violent towards the Federation. And I think that's the opposite of what we kind of expect from that situation. So I would imagine, what I'm hoping for is that we have a situation where it's like, listen, we had the opportunity to blow your whole planet up, and we didn't. We didn't do it. So why don't you think about that? And because the whole ideology is right now, and as they've alluded to in this last episode that we just talked about, is that the Klingons are afraid of what the Federation represents, which is assimilation of the culture, loss of what it means to be a Klingon, and to sit there and say, well, we could have ended your entire existence, in history on this planet, and we didn't do it. And I think that may cause a ceasefire. That I would love to see.
Yeah,
I would love to see that being the victory. That's the victory. That Cornwall, even that we go against the Terran Empire, Empress Georgiou's idea of just subjugate them and destroy their homes, and that we stand up for our ideals, and that's what wins. That's what I would like to see.
I like it too.
That's a Starfleet, in my opinion.
That is totally a Starfleet thing. Yeah. I have a question for you, gentlemen. What did you think of Captain Saru for the limited time that we had him? And would you, when all this settles down, is Captain Saru someone that you would accept as a viewer? Or would you like to see the idea of maybe a new captain? Because I don't think Georgiou is going to last. She's listed as a guest star on the credits. So I don't think we're going to get her next season.
Yeah, she's done. Yeah.
What do what do you think? Yeah.
Do you want the quick answer?
No, we have a little more time. Go ahead.
When you just said about Captain Saru, would I want him? Yes. Yeah, he's awesome. He's the way he's grown has been really impressive. He inspires his crewmates. He's measured, but he'll do what he needs to do to get he does what he needs to do to get things done. He's caring, he's compassionate. I think he's kind of the ideal captain, really. And Doug Jones plays him so well. I definitely want him as. I just assumed that Cornwall was going to make him captain. So I was a bit shocked when they brought Georgiou out.
Well, that was a
I would say that part of my annoyance with the end of them trying to this whole subterfuge of here's Philippa Georgiou was also the fact that Saru's not in the captain's chair. And I was actually excited because it was a very key moment when Cornwall walks out of the captain's ready room and Saru goes to get up and she motions for him to stay seated.
Yeah, I know.
I'm because he's the fucking captain. And then she's like, and here's Philippa Georgiou. And I'm like, what? Like, you're sidelining my boy?
It's
BS.
They gave him a lot.
Have either of you read Desperate Hours yet?
No, have you read it?
Yeah.
Non-spoiler or spoiler, it doesn't matter. Review real quick, 2 seconds. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
It's really good. It's really good.
Okay, cool.
It's the bit before Discovery, basically.
Okay.
But it's just the fact that poor Saru gets overlooked again. It's it must be really frustrating for him. He's like, I've done all of this, and you're still not going to make me captain. What the hell does a Kelpian have to do?
A lot, apparently, because I personally, I was really annoyed with this character in the beginning. So I feel really one of those people that are. If I was definitely not on Team Saru before, but I'm on Team Saru now. But I really like the moments that they gave him in this episode, like when Admiral Cornwall can't think for that moment when they discovered that Starbase 1 was taken and all 80,000 people appeared to have been killed or whatever, but he's the one who kind of goes, Detmer, or no, Detmer, go to warp right now, and so he still has a cool head in that situation. I like that, as soon as he doesn't waste any time, Emperor Georgiou is taunting him, and he's just transport her immediately to her quarters. It's he's just okay, I don't have time for this. So that was a good moment. Another touching moment in the episode, aside from the Tilly scene, was the compassion that Saru showed to Tyler. I think that got me to feel a lot more comfortable with Tyler as a because being nervous about him or whatever, but in that scene, not only it's a great scene because we established that Tyler is genuinely like, he remembers everything. He can access Voke's memories as though they're like this kind of like imagined or distant thing, and he's willing to help. So like, what more can you ask for? If he's like still up to no good, it's gonna be like hard. I think it's gonna be harder for him to execute anything, because now he's being watched a little bit more closely. But Saru's reaction to him in that scene where he's like, I don't see any evidence of Voke before me, and while I can't technically, which I think is the right thing, give you your privileges back, I do give you the freedom to go about your day and discover who you are, and and stuff like that.
I thought that was really interesting compared to Saru and Tilly, their reaction to Tyler, compared to Burnham and Stamets. Like, that was one of my questions that I was going to ask you. Is it fair how Burnham and Stamets treat Tyler? Because maybe I'm a bit naive, but I'm seeing Tyler as he's a victim too, but Burnham and Stamets treat him like he's the one that's committed the crime when he's been abused, tortured. Yeah. So is it fair the way they treat him, do you think?
Fair? No, but human? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just,
yeah.
I actually think that the fact that, the fact that if this was a TNG episode, like, Picard would have had a fantastic speech at the end about how he was a victim too, and we need to look past all the times that, and then the next episode it would have been forgotten about, but that's not human. That's not relatable.
That's true.
That's not connecting. And I love a good Picard speech. Don't get me wrong, but that's not relatable. That's not what
you definitely have to do a Picard speech now. You have to make a Picard speech, isn't it?
That's right.
And Rob, you're not naive. You're just optimistic.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Thanks.
But I had to do it.
More onto your point, though. It's okay.
So set up someone. I agree with Nick on that. I think it is very human, and also I think it's important to show this because it's like, essentially, like, it's hard to look past the person, the physical form that killed the love of your life, as well as the person who just tried to kill you, that was your lover. So while Tilly and Saru did the right thing, I don't think that like Burnham and Stamets are being unfair. I think that, in fact, I was surprised with Stamets' reaction, where he's like, I would have like wanted to kill this guy, and
yeah, he does.
He shows
show him some kindness when he says about maybe there is some human left
in you, and I think that's like something like at least Stamets in a way is saying is like, in his own way he's saying I understand, and then even Burnham is like, she could have gotten into a big argument with him, because I think Tyler, obviously he's a little he's going through a lot of shit, and I do agree that it's like he is a victim in some way, albeit Tyler is. Voke went into it, understanding what happened, and so Tyler is the true victim, but it's tragic because there's no way to get true Tyler back. The real person that was Tyler is gone, and that's what he's saying in that scene. He's like, who is Tyler anymore? I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like, but then Burnham's like, listen, it's really difficult to let you go. And she kind of gives him a moment there too. She's like, I have to do this. Like, she needs to focus on her own redemption, on her own like journey. And I loved it. I thought that was great.
And what did you think of I know we talked a lot about her, Admiral Cornwall, in this episode. Were you glad to see her back? Because I was really glad to see her back.
I was really glad to see her back. Yeah. And she's definitely going to be the one that's going to reinstate Burnham's rank in Starfleet, either at the end of this season or the beginning of next.
I hope so, yeah.
And
I loved seeing her back.
So
I was disappointed with her decision with Empress Giorgio, but I was glad to see her back.
Right. Well, that's why I say that she's going to be the one that Burnham's going to be the one that pulls her back from the edge
Yeah.
of doing whatever it is that the Empress wants to do, and then that's how Cornwall is going to be have her own little redemption character piece in herself of sitting there saying, "You know what, you were right, and you reminded me of what it was to be a Starfleet officer. Here's your rank back, you jamoke. Here you go."
Jamoke.
So that's it.
I love the bit where they're in the little conference room and she blast Lorca's what was it, the food that he can't remember what he has, little bowl.
His fortune cookies. Yeah, that's a good waste of fortune cookies, by the way. But what's also funny about that is the fortune cookies were in his ready room. So does that mean the bowl moved, or does he have multiple bowls around? I like to imagine they're
I'm
everywhere.
gonna go with the multiple bowl theory. I mean, like
Bowl theory confirmed. He's got fortune cookies everywhere in the Discovery, and they don't expire ever in real life. So they're going to be eaten.
Any other notes from you, gentlemen?
I think that two things is the mycelial planet, Genesis Planet version 1, I think is also canon breaking. And I really am curious to see how they reckon. They're making it harder and harder for them to reconcile the spore drive and mycelium with the rest of Star Trek canon.
I mean, like the show almost intentionally is making these irreconcilable differences from what we expect. So
we'll see what that means. But the other thing is as much shit as I've given the writers in this particular discussion about how not clever I think they are, our four main characters, Saru, Burnham, Stamets, and Tilly, who are essentially our four main characters. I would say all the other characters are plot devices and plot tools. They've all grown. When you look at every one of those characters from the first time that they appeared on screen, they have all grown.
Yeah.
Considerably grown. And I'm not going to list all of the ones. You guys have watched the episodes. You guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys for 15 minutes listing them, but the fact, I just want to touch on it because the fact that the writers have...
I would like you to make a video about it. But anyways, go on. That's a request. A Starfleet Boy request is that you make it, because it is that is a really good... Go on, sorry.
No, you're fine. No, you're right. I'm going to make once I see the episode next week, I'm going to do a video...
a roundup or a recap or something.
Pretty much, basically, it's going to be more of like why you should give Discovery a second chance, because a lot of people stop watching after episodes 4 and 5. At least that's what I see on comments on my channel.
I experienced that from friends of mine. Like, So
I'm going to make a video that basically is like in defense of Discovery and why you should give it a second chance. Watch the first season and then make a decision. But yeah, and in that video, I'm going to touch on the fact that every one of those main characters has grown considerably, and they've done a great job with making it very subtle, and having every single act that happens on screen really affect them. I wouldn't even consider Ash Tyler to be a main character, or L'Oreal at this point. I think that they are just story plot devices for our four main characters, and in a good way. You know, I think it's a good thing. And,
it's neat to see how they bubbled up to the surface too, and it's really cool. It's a really neat way of writing. It's very good.
For sure. So I think I think we pretty much know what's going to happen in this next episode. I think for season 2, we're going to see Captain Saru with First Officer Michael Burnham, and the Discovery helping rebuild the lost territory that they had from the Klingon War, and working on that. And I think that's where we're going to be.
I like getting these. I hope we scoop it here on Starfleet. for the 7 people that listen, they're gonna be like, "That guy was totally right."
Listen, other than the time traveling, which I'm still not sold that they're not going to do time traveling yet.
Right.
Other than that, I've been right on the money.
Oh yeah, you've been good. I watch you. I listen, and so yeah. Rob, any other notes on the episode?
Other than the fact we saw an Andorian and a Tellarite.
That's right. That was pretty awesome. Yeah,
in their Starfleet uniform. That was pretty cool. And
what's up with the Andorian voice?
No, that's cool.
I like how pissed off he is. He's definitely angry. The Andorian is.
We asked the questions.
Yeah,
I felt like he was gonna drop an F-bomb when he beamed in. But what is frustrating though is that not to get on a different tangent, but the Andorian makeup looks the same for all 3 times we've seen in it.
Yeah, is it the same?
Is it the same guy? I don't know.
Yeah,
Same guy.
Were there 2 admirals?
He's an admiral. He's in a rebellion, and he's also part of the body. He does it all.
He gets around a lot. That Andorian.
He does. He does. That Andorian doesn't mess around.
He's not the chimney
Are
sweep.
you
Mary
wait,
Poppins
Nick?
has
Are
multiple
you
jobs.
saying that all Andorians look alike? Is that what you're saying? Just kidding.
I'm saying that all Andorians and all Kelpians look alike, because even all the 3 Kelpians that we saw in the universe all look like Doug Jones. Okay. Every one of them look the same. So just saying.
And
it's pretty funny.
And did we? I can't remember. We might have already. Did we mention a little reference to Archer and the Enterprise?
That was nice. Yeah, they've done that a couple of times.
That was great. That was perfect.
Cool.
Loved it. Yeah,
that was nice.
It was very well done.
Let's give this episode. I have nothing else. You guys covered like anything I could have thought of, and blew my mind a little too. I guess we could do the episode rating. So Nick, since you gave the summary, you have the privilege of going last. That's a new Starfleet boy rule that Sean asked me to establish.
Okay.
So you get the privilege of going last. So would you like to go first, Rob, or would you like me to go first? Go ahead. Let's hear
I
it.
think I'm kind of between a 7 and a 7.5 for me, because it wasn't as like you were saying, Nick. There is a lot of talking, and there's not much action going on, so it's not as high octane as some of the other episodes we've had in this second chapter of season 1. But it is still really, really good, mainly because of, for me, Admiral Cornwall. I really like her, having her back.
Cool.
Very cool. I am hoping that the budget breaker episode is going to be the next episode, so it's going to be just crazy. We'll see those Constitution class starships in battle, and we'll see all these like cool things. But for this episode, actually, I had a higher rating in mind when I saw it, as opposed to after our discussion, and that's not a bad thing. I think that's actually a good thing. That's part of why I love these discussions. So I'm going to give this episode a 9. And believe it or not, I was going to give it a 10 when we started out.
Wow. That's really good.
So this episode gets a 9. Not that we need to justify it, but I think for me, it just like exposition wise, it like really kind of helped me resolve a lot of the season, like through dialogue. Like we got a lot of like, interesting character follow-ups, and like the thing you said about the 4 main characters kind of bubbling up, it's so evident in this episode, and it really like kind of stands out, and it's well played, as well as I think that like wrapping up all these relationships right now before we go into the crazy episode to come is a good thing. And I did notice that this episode was like 3 minutes longer than the typical Discovery episode, so I kind of like
it was 48 minutes.
Yeah, so I kind of like that they're playing with the time and stuff like that. So yeah, overall it's a really exciting episode for me. So 9.
9. Okay.
9. The last 3 episodes have been getting.
Well, Sean messaged us on Twitter, and he gave it a
right on.
10, just letting you guys know.
He gave it a 10?
7 out of 10.
Oh, 7 out of 10.
So,
okay, got it. I was like, whoa.
So, yeah, he loves the episode. I would say that for me, I'm going to put this episode at a 4.
Wow, we already knew. No spoilers there. You said you didn't like this episode.
I know. I said I did not like this episode. I've covered all the reasons why I didn't like him. And
yeah.
As a stickler for canon and trying to understand how this puzzle, how the Discovery puzzle piece fits into Star Trek's puzzle as a whole, every episode they just keep adding like a little extra ticks on the side of the puzzle piece, and it's harder and harder to fit into the overall puzzle.
It's very
so.
because they're hoping there's enough mysteries that you can't stop watching.
For sure. Because like I said earlier, the mycelium planet Genesis version 1, it's like that does nothing but complicate this even more, exponentially more. And we have Empress Georgia. Like, there's just so much stuff that they're just complicating things even more about. But yeah. Anyways,
very nice, very cool.
We'll see what's up.
That's that's below a 5, which brings the average of the three of us down to somewhere around 6. Is that fair, you guys?
Yeah.
Any
any
objections to
I
that?
would do 6.5, just for if you include Sean's rating in there too.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right, so we'll say 6.5 for this episode of Star Trek Discovery. I had a really fun time talking about this stuff with you guys, and I am so excited to do hopefully we can get everyone on for the finale.
I think we'll need to schedule it. I think we need to get the whole
let's
team
talk
together.
about it. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about it offline. Anyways, live long and prosper. Audience, if you made it this far, please be sure to like if you liked it, comment below, and subscribe. And be sure to check out Ketwalski and the Real Ketwalski on Twitter, and also Trekkie Rob and the Trek Book Club on Twitter. So that's it. And everyone else too. Gary, Trekker Prize, and Sean from Trek on the Tube. There we go. I've done all the good credits and everything like that. So cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers. See you later.